Hi there. In this lecture we see Janis Klavins against Mikhail Tal in 1958. The opening is e4 and then Tal plays the Sicilian defense, knight f3 d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, we have knight to f6, knight c3, now a6 to Najdorf. So Mikhail Tal may have been an influence on Bobby Fischer to actually pick the Najdorf as a top weapon of choice, and later Garry Kasparov. So yes, the attacking dynamic players have often played the Sicilian Najdorf. It's kind of the Rolls Royce, one of the better variations within the Sicilian. Here we see bishop c4, a trademark Fischer move actually. Bishop c4, we see e6, bishop b3, bishop e7. Both sides now castle. Now here, this seems actually, from what we know in terms of engine analysis, a slight inaccuracy. f4 here. Black has a plan in this position, especially with the knight still on b8. The knight hasn't moved, so it's covering c6. So we can actually have a plan in general to play b5, bishop b7, and start to put pressure on e4. Furthermore, that could be continued later with knight d7 to c5 or this knight to c5. So there are a lot of plans to put more and more pressure on e4 here. With f4, it's a bit of a commitment. Pawns don't go backwards. A safer move, it seems, from a theoretical perspective, is a4. And that puts a dampener on b5 clearly. For example, knight bd7. Let's say knight bd7, queen e2, knight c5. The bishop can also have the luxury of dropping back to a2 to retain the bishop. So there's two benefits of a4 there, vacating a2 and also this stopping b5. This kind of scenario should be fine. And if white wants to play f4 later, white can. This is like an even position. In the game, it's a little bit different. And by the way, if we examine this again, and we can't really play b6 here because of knight c6, just for the record, that will be bad to give that bishop up. White is slightly, better here. So anyway, f4 is played here, and Tal does use the luxury of b5 being able to be played here, knowing the knight's guarding c6. And white now plays a kind of luxury time-wasting move in a way, a3, just to prevent b4. But it is already, from a theoretical perspective, as though black is more than equalizing here, especially with a3. And in fact, Fischer made a big deal about moves like a3 against the Sicilian Najdorf as sometimes being the difference between having an advantage and being at a disadvantage. So is a3 a kind of unfortunate consequence of white's early f4? If e5 is an alternative, then this is fine for black after taking. Okay, white gets this semi-open file, but actually, e5 being a concern, and the knight can pivot to c5, and there's still positional pressure. This kind of situation, black's got no problems here. And black also had the option of just taking on b3, of course. And even if the queens come off, rook a7 is pretty nifty to get the rook into the game. Black's doing well there. So in this situation, a3, it seems as though black's more than equalized here. We see actually knight bd7. You might think, well, hold on, what about c6? Bishop e3 is played. If knight c6, there is the diagonal of death to consider as well. So queen b6 check. Yeah, it's just a waste of time. And if the knight has to go back, then e5, and that looks as though it's not going to end well here for white. So bishop e3 was played, which is interesting, but if f5, the snag is, with f5, black does play e5, and after bishop b7, we can see actually a5 being useful here to try and drive away this defensive knight of e4. It seems as though white's struggling to hold e4. If knight takes b5, check, and then we take the knight. Otherwise, if king h1, queen b6, this is more than equal for black. These scenarios are actually, black can now set up a battery against e4, and that goes all the way to the king. And this is a very, very comfortable position, as an example with d5. Very, very comfortable. And there's even, resources like knight f4 here, looking at the king now to make the king. So say this, for example here, and then bishop takes, threatening knight h3 mate. This is just to take it a bit further, these ideas. And if rook fd1, again, black ends up being better here. And you might wonder, even if white takes the exchange, then that's fine as well. These are fantastic scenarios with this bishop cutting all the way. And, Tal's beaten the likes of Fischer in this variation as well. So this is very, very interesting that this whole thing seems suspect. It really does seem suspect, this opening sequence for white, this a3 in particular. So after knight b7, bishop e3, to recap. So bishop e3, but we now just see bishop b7, and the e4 as an issue is actually a major, major issue here. What does white actually do in this position? And so that's why I've gone at length to show that white has problems in any case, and that this position here is just a symptom of an inaccurate move order. It's a very risky move order. White ends up giving up the bishop here, a bishop sack, which is not entirely sound at all. The thing is, if queen f3, then knight c5. And how is e4 defended? If f5, e5 first, and then taking on e4, this is great for black. Or if queen d3, then on straight into knight c5, and then taking. So it's a very unfortunate position here, in any case. So we see bishop takes e6. Tal gladly accepts this. Knight takes e6. Queen e8. He doesn't mind this knight c7 at all. In fact, white doesn't even bother with knight c7. White plays queen d4. If knight takes f8, there's also knight takes f8. If white wants to win the exchange, it could be done immediately. Forget knight c7. But if knight takes f8, bishop takes, again, e4's under fire. And black's got a big advantage here. And knight c7 for the record, so what? If the knight goes back, then black's going to retain all the material. And if taking, so what? This situation, we're blasting through on e4 with big advantage. So, this is just, this is not a great move, queen d4 as a follow-up. We see rook c8, which does mean potentially, rook c4. Black doesn't mind the knight taking the rook at all. We see rook e1, rook c4. Now the queen plunges into the position. And again, Tal doesn't mind at all, knight takes rook. So queen c8 is played. Knight takes f8 is played now, bishop takes. Bishop d4, but now a really powerful move, showing, hold on, this is a diagonal of death. Okay, there are two pieces sitting on it, but tactically, this is suspect now. Guess what Tal plays here for 100 points? And also Fischer was fantastic at using this diagonal of death in the Sicilian Najdorf with the black pieces, often winning games off the back of this diagonal. It's a great point scorer for any dynamic, tactical, aggressive player, this diagonal. And here, there's a great move celebrating that diagonal. So can you spot it for 100 points? Or 200 points? Black to play. And what would be the threat? Okay. d5. It means that the bishop is activated, and black now is threatening rook takes, and then bishop c5, pinning the queen to the king. So we see the king getting out of there as high priority. If e5, just to put this on the board, rook takes. So if queen takes, bishop c5, and if e takes, then still bishop c5, in fact. And it kind of traps the queen as well. It's brutal. It's trapping the queen. f7 is harmless. That chain is harmless. It's just winning the queen. If e takes again, just rook takes d4 and then bishop c5. If knight takes, even better is actually bishop takes d5 first, technically, and then rook d4 and then bishop c5. So we get the idea now. d5, it's a good one to bear in mind, d5, to liberate this bishop onto the diagonal of death. So king h1 is played, and we see d takes e4. So white is basically lost here. It's a lost position in a way. So we have now a battery being set up against the king, for e3 to threaten checkmate on g2. Not very nice. b3. And in fact, Tal just gladly plays rook takes c3 to be able to get on with things with less hassle. And he's not interested in, he wants to keep the battery going, and queen takes c3 is harmless. White just takes on b7 and might even claim an advantage. So the point here of this exchange set is to play e3. So big idea is e2, but the bigger one is the mate threat, which needs to be addressed. So we see rook f3. So just to put that on the board, bishop e1, queen takes g2 is checkmate. So rook f3, and black's position is so good, a lot of moves win here. e2 is played. It's so crushing, this position. And here, after rook, this white actually resigns here. This is the end of the game. If rook e1, then we can just play bishop c5, trapping the queen. Yeah, if nothing else, we don't even have to play anything spectacular. But just for the record, there is something quite nice here. Queen takes f3 is also fun. And then we can still play bishop c5. And this is still winning, technically. It's good. But no, just bishop c5 is simple and strong, trapping the queen here. So yeah, a really crushing game. So it's not even about g2 anymore. The queen is also kind of trappable. So yeah, a crushing game, and sets the tone for encouragement. I think if we use these games as an excuse to look in detail, why did white sack on e6? Was the position so desperate? And truly understand those reasons, then maybe we can also kind of leverage sometimes the Sicilian Najdorf. We get a taste of it through some analysis, and we have state-of-the-art technology now, and it really is as though this is an opening which really threatens not just equality, but to gain an advantage straight out of the opening. If white is overly ambitious and plays one wrong pawn move, we see white getting in a lot of trouble. And it's the symptoms of that trouble that white understood, it seems, to some extent, that led to this kind of speculative, unsound bishop sacrifice. Okay, so very, very interesting stuff. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Hi there. Thanks for getting to the end of the YouTube video. If you would like to see other Mikhail Tal games, I actually have an amazing course for Mikhail Tal, which is currently at 4.9 with over 400 students. You can check this out from the Kingscrusher TV page. So Chess Strategy and Tactics, Mikhail Tal's amazing games. You can check out some free preview videos as well here. If you do expand all sections, you can see the preview links to get some free previews. So I hope you do check out this course index and the free previews. So I really had a thrilling time actually checking out Mikhail Tal's games. So yeah, the YouTube video here you saw was just a sample from this course. I hope you check it out. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, by the way, comments, questions, likes, shares, all appreciated. And if you did get to this part of the video, please do leave some sort of comment like Tal fan. Okay, thanks again.